Jake Sullivan looked out the window of the transport ship and felt his stomach drop. The Galactic Medical Academy floated in space like a massive crystal flower, its walls glowing with soft blue light. He had never seen anything so beautiful, or so alien. Next to him, his classmate Lisa Martinez was gripping her seat with white knuckles. "You okay?" Jake asked her. "Just nervous," Lisa said. "I mean, we're the first humans they've ever invited to study here." "What if we mess this up?" Jake smiled. "We won't mess it up." "We're good at what we do," Lisa nodded but didn't look convinced. They had both worked hard to get here. The Galactic Medical Academy was famous across the galaxy for its advanced healing methods. When Earth had joined the galactic community just 5 years ago, nobody expected humans to be invited to study medicine with the aliens. Most species thought humans were too violent and primitive. The transport ship docked with a soft hiss. Jake grabbed his bag and followed Lisa through the airlock. The first thing that hit him was the smell. Everything smelled like flowers and something clean he couldn't identify. The walls were smooth and curved, made of some kind of white material that seemed to glow from within. "Welcome, human students," said a voice behind them. Jake turned and saw his first alien medical student. The being was tall and thin, with skin that looked like it was made of blue crystal. Its eyes were large and silver, and when it moved, tiny lights sparkled under its skin. "I am Zixara," the being said. "I am from the Silthic Consortium. I will be your guide today." "I'm Jake," Jake said, holding out his hand. Zixara looked at his hand for a moment, then carefully touched it with one finger. The touch was cold and smooth, like touching a piece of polished stone. "This is Lisa," Jake said. "We are honored to meet you," Zixara said. "Please follow me. The other students are waiting." They walked through corridors that seemed to bend and flow like water. Other aliens moved past them, some floating in the air, others walking on multiple legs. Jake saw beings made of what looked like living gas, creatures covered in fur, and others that seemed to be made entirely of light. "Your homeworld is very dangerous, yes?" Zixara asked as they walked. "Earth can be tough," Jake said. "But we've learned to deal with it." "We have studied your planet," Zixara said. "So much violence. So much death. We are sorry for your species." Lisa and Jake exchanged a look. They had expected this. Most aliens thought of Earth as a death world, a place so violent that only the strongest could survive. They weren't wrong, but they didn't understand that the violence had made humans stronger, not weaker. They entered a large room with a curved ceiling that showed the stars outside. About 20 alien students were waiting for them. Jake saw more. Crystal beings like Zixara, some floating gas creatures, and others he couldn't even begin to describe. "Students," Zixara said, "these are our human visitors. Jake Sullivan and Lisa Martinez." The alien students moved closer, studying the humans. With obvious curiosity, Jake felt like he was in a zoo. "Are you really from a death world?" asked one of the gas creatures. Its voice sounded like wind through leaves. "That's what you call it?" Jake said. "We just call it home. How do you survive?" asked another alien, this one covered in purple fur with 6 arms. "We adapt," Lisa said. "We learn, we help each other." One of the crystal beings, smaller than Zixara, stepped forward. "I am Velkas. I have read about human medicine. You cut into bodies, you break bones. You cause pain to heal. This seems wrong." Jake nodded. "Sometimes we have to hurt someone to save their life. If someone is dying, we don't have time to be gentle." The alien students made sounds that Jake guessed were expressions of shock or disgust. Several of them stepped back. "But healing should be peaceful," said the gas creature. "Pain is the enemy of healing. Not always," Jake said. "Sometimes pain is the only way to keep someone alive." A new voice spoke from the back of the room. "Welcome, human students." The crowd parted, and an elderly alien approached. This one was tall and thin, with skin like silver metal and eyes that glowed with soft white light. Jake could feel power radiating from the being. "I am Elder Physician Culmet," the alien said. "I am the head of this academy. We are honored to have you here." Thank you for inviting us, Lisa said. We hope to learn from each other, Colmit said. Your species is new to the galactic community, but we have heard interesting things about human medicine. What kind of things? Jake asked. That you have learned to heal quickly? That you can save lives in situations where other species would fail? We are curious about your methods? Jake nodded. We'd be happy to share what we know. Excellent. But first, let us show you our methods. We believe in gentle healing, working with the body's natural processes rather than against them. We do not cut, we do not break, we do not cause pain. Colmit gestured toward a wall that suddenly became transparent. Behind it was a medical bay with beds that seemed to be made of light. Patients lay on the beds while alien doctors moved around them, their hands glowing with soft energy. We use energy manipulation to encourage healing, Colmit explained. We can regrow lost limbs over time, repair damaged organs, even restore youth. But it requires patience and harmony with natural forces. Jake watched as one of the doctors worked on a patient with a broken arm. The doctor held his hands over the break, and light flowed between them. The patient looked peaceful, almost asleep. How long does that take? Jake asked. For a simple break? Perhaps 6 hours. For complex injuries, days or weeks. But there is no pain, no trauma, no risk of infection. 6 hours? Lisa said, what if the patient is dying? Then we work faster, Colmit said, but we never abandon our principles. Healing must be gentle, or it is not true healing. Jake thought about the emergency room back on Earth. He remembered patients coming in with gunshot wounds, car accident victims, people who would die in minutes without immediate help. 6 hours for a broken arm would be a luxury they couldn't afford. Your methods sound amazing, Jake said carefully. But what about emergencies? What if someone is bleeding to death? We have ways to stop bleeding without violence, Colmit said. Energy fields conceal wounds. Cellular regeneration can replace lost blood, all without causing additional harm. And if someone's heart stops? We can restart it with controlled energy pulses. Very gentle, very precise. Jake nodded, but he was thinking about CPR, about chest compressions hard enough to break ribs, about electric shocks that could restart a heart in seconds. The alien methods sounded wonderful, but they also sounded slow. Tomorrow we will demonstrate our techniques, Colmit said. And perhaps you can show us yours. We'd like that, Jake said, as the meeting ended and the alien students began to leave. Jake heard them talking in their own languages. He didn't understand the words, but he could hear the tone. They were excited, curious, but also a little afraid. They think we're barbarians, Lisa whispered to him. Maybe, Jake said. But tomorrow we'll show them that sometimes being a barbarian is what saves lives. They followed Zixara to their quarters, rooms that seemed to grow from the walls themselves. Jake sat on his bed, which felt like it was made of clouds, and thought about home. On Earth, medicine was a battle. Here, it was an art. He wondered which approach would win when it really mattered. Jake woke up to the sound of soft music that seemed to come from the walls themselves. The alien quarters were comfortable, but he had slept badly. His dreams had been filled with emergency rooms and patients who needed help right now, not in 6 hours. Lisa was already awake when he met her in the corridor. She looked as tired as he felt, ready for the big demonstration. She asked. As ready as I'll ever be, Jake said. They followed the glowing lines in the floor that led to the main medical bay. The room was larger than Jake had expected, with a high ceiling that showed a peaceful blue sky. Alien students were already gathering around several medical beds. Zixara approached them with what Jake was learning to recognize as excitement. The crystal being's skin was brighter than usual, and the lights under its surface were flashing faster. Today you will see true healing, Zixara said. We have arranged for patients with various injuries to demonstrate our methods. Elder Physician. Colmit stood in the center of the room, his silver skin reflecting the soft light. Students, today we will show our human guests the beauty of gentle healing. We will demonstrate why violence has no place in medicine. The first patient was brought in on a floating bed. Jake could see it was one of the purple furry aliens, and one of its 6 arms was clearly broken. The bone was bent at a wrong angle, and the arm was swollen. "This is Morthic," Colmet said. "He fell from a height and broke his arm. Watch as we heal him." 3 alien doctors surrounded the patient. They placed their hands above the broken arm, and their hands began to glow with soft green light. The light flowed down to the patient's arm, and Jake could see the swelling slowly going down. "The energy encouraged the bone to remember its proper shape," Colmet explained. "The cells are guided back to their natural pattern. There is no pain, no trauma, no risk." Jake watched as the doctors worked. The patient looked peaceful, almost asleep. The break was definitely healing, but it was happening very slowly. After an hour, the bone was still visibly bent. "How long will this take?" Jake asked. "Perhaps 4 more hours," one of the doctors sighed. "Healing cannot be rushed." The alien students watched with obvious admiration. They whispered to each other about the beauty of the process, the harmony of the energy fields, the peace of the patient. The second demonstration was even more impressive. A gas creature had somehow torn part of its atmospheric containment field. The injury was invisible to Jake, but he could see that the being was having trouble maintaining its shape. No or single quote ek. One of the gas creatures Jake had met the day before floated forward. "I will demonstrate atmospheric healing," it said in its wind-like voice. Narek surrounded the injured being with its own gaseous form. The 2 creatures became one cloud, swirling together in patterns that were beautiful to watch. Slowly, the injured being began to hold its shape better. "This process allows the injured atmospheric being to absorb healthy gas particles," Colmet explained. "It will take several days, but the healing will be complete." Jake nodded, but he was thinking about human medicine. Several days to heal what might be fixed in minutes with the right tools. He wondered what would happen if someone was dying and couldn't wait several days. "Now," Colmet said, "we would like to see human healing methods. We understand you have developed some interesting techniques." Jake felt all the alien eyes on him. He looked at Lisa, who nodded. "Well," Jake said, "human medicine is different. We're usually dealing with emergencies where time is critical. Our methods might seem rough to you." "We are prepared," Colmet said. "Please demonstrate." Jake looked around the room and saw a training dummy in the corner. It was made to look like a generic humanoid figure. "I'll show you CPR," Jake said. "That's what we do when someone's heart stops." He dragged the dummy to the center of the room. The alien students gathered around, their faces showing curiosity and anticipation. "When a human heart stops," Jake explained, "we have about 4 minutes before brain damage starts. We can't wait for gentle energy healing." He knelt beside the dummy and placed his hands on its chest. "First, we check for breathing and pulse. If there's none, we start chest compressions." Jake pressed down hard on the dummy's chest. The sound of the compression echoed through the quiet room. Several alien students jerked back in surprise. "You pushed down at least 2 inches, Jake continued, pressing down again. "Hard and fast. 30 compressions, then 2 rescue breaths." He demonstrated the chest compressions, pushing down with all his weight. The dummy's chest caved in with each push. The alien students were making sounds of distress. "Why are you hitting it?" Velkas asked, his crystal form flickering with what Jake guessed was fear. "I'm not hitting it," Jake said, still doing compressions. "I'm pumping the heart manually." The chest compressions squeezed the heart and pushed blood through the body. He tilted the dummy's head back and gave it 2 breaths. Then he went back to chest compressions. "In a real emergency, you do this for as long as it takes," Jake said. "Sometimes ribs break from the pressure. Sometimes you have to keep going. Even when you're tired. Ribs break?" Zixara's voice was barely a whisper. "Better broken ribs than a dead patient," Jake said. The room had gone completely silent except for the sound of Jake's compressions. The alien students were staring at him with expressions of horror. "This is violence," one of them said. "This is medicine," Jake replied. "On Earth." We save about 40% of cardiac arrest patients who get CPR. What's your success rate when someone's heart stops? Holmit was quiet for a moment. Our methods work differently. We prevent heart problems before they become critical. But what if prevention fails? Lisa asked. What if someone has a heart attack right now? We would use energy fields to restart the heart, Holmit said. It takes time to prepare the equipment and align the energy patterns. How much time? Jake asked. Perhaps 20 minutes. Jake stopped doing compressions. 20 minutes? The patient would be dead, brain dead, anyway. The alien students were looking at each other with confusion and fear. Jake realized they had never dealt with the idea that medicine could be violent and life-saving at the same time. Let me show you something else, Lisa said. She pulled out a small knife from her medical kit. Several alien students screamed. 2 of them fainted. Others backed away toward the walls. It's okay, Lisa said quickly. This is just a scalpel. We use it for surgery. Surgery? Nareka's voice was barely audible. Sometimes we have to cut people open to save their lives, Lisa explained. If someone has internal bleeding, we can't wait for gentle healing. We have to open them up and fix the problem. She showed them the scalpel, clean and sharp. This can save a life in the right hands. You cut into living beings? Zixara asked. Only when we have to, Lisa said. And we use anesthesia so they don't feel pain, but yes, sometimes we have to cut to heal. The room erupted in shocked whispers. Jake heard words in alien languages that he was pretty sure were not compliments. We also use needles, Jake said, pulling out a syringe, to inject medicine directly into the bloodstream. More aliens fainted. Others made sounds of distress. One of the gas creatures lost its shape completely and had to be helped by its classmates. I think that's enough for today, Colmet said quickly. His silver skin had gone pale. Perhaps we should discuss the philosophical differences between our approaches. There's no philosophy, Jake said. There's just what works and what doesn't. When someone is dying, you do whatever it takes to save them, even if it causes pain? Velkas asked. Even if it causes pain, Jake said. Because a little pain is better than death. The alien students were quiet. Jake could see them thinking, trying to understand how healing could involve violence. Your methods are ... Colmet paused, searching for words. They are very different from ours. They work, Lisa said simply. But at what cost? Zixara asked. How can you hurt someone to heal them? Because sometimes, Jake said, being gentle isn't kind. Sometimes being kind means being rough. The demonstration was over, but Jake could see the alien students would be thinking about what they had seen for a long time. They looked at him and Lisa with new expressions, not just curiosity anymore, but something that might have been fear. As they left the medical bay, Jake heard the aliens talking in worried voices. He understood now that this was going to be harder than he had thought. The aliens didn't just disagree with human medicine, they were terrified of it, but Jake also knew that fear might be the first step toward understanding. Tomorrow, maybe, they would learn why humans had to be so rough with their healing. He hoped they would get the chance to learn before it was too late. Jake was eating breakfast in the academy cafeteria when the lights flickered. The food tasted like flowers mixed with metal, and he was having trouble getting used to it. Lisa sat across from him, picking at something that looked like blue pudding. Think they'll ever understand why we do things our way? Lisa asked. Maybe, Jake said, but it might take a while. They've never had to deal with real emergencies. The lights flickered again, longer this time. Jake looked up at the ceiling, frowning. The gentle music that always played in the background stuttered and went quiet. That's weird, Lisa said. Around them, alien students were looking up with concern. Jake saw Zixara at a nearby table, the crystal being's skin flashing with nervous light patterns. Suddenly the floor shook. It was a small tremor, but it made Jake's water glass slide across the table. The alien students began making worried sounds. Attention all students and faculty, a voice said from the walls. We are experiencing a minor technical issue with the main energy core. Please remain calm while we investigate. Jake and Lisa looked at each other. On Earth, they had learned not to trust words like minor technical issue. Those words usually meant something big was about to go wrong. The floor shook again, harder this time. Jake's chair slid backward, and he heard the sound of breaking glass from the kitchen area. That didn't feel minor, Lisa said. The lights went out completely. Emergency lighting kicked in a few seconds later, bathing everything in red light. The alien students were making sounds of panic now, high-pitched whistles and low groans that Jake couldn't identify. Then the explosion happened. It started as a deep rumble from somewhere below them. The floor bucked like a wild animal, throwing Jake from his chair. The walls shook, and Jake heard the sound of cracking crystal and tearing metal. "Everyone down!" Jake shouted, but he wasn't sure if the aliens understood him. The rumble grew louder and louder until it became a roar. Then the shock wave hit. Jake felt himself thrown through the air. He hit the wall hard and slid to the floor, his head ringing. Around him, the cafeteria was chaos. Tables and chairs were scattered everywhere. The beautiful curved walls had cracks running through them like spider webs. "Lisa!" Jake called out. "I'm here." She shouted back from somewhere in the smoke and dust. Jake got to his feet, his medical training taken over. The first rule of emergency medicine was to assess the situation. He looked around and felt his stomach drop. The explosion had been worse than he thought. Part of the ceiling had collapsed, and he could see stars through the hole. Several alien students were trapped under debris. Others were lying motionless on the floor. "We need to help them," Lisa said, appearing beside him. She had a cut on her forehead, but she was moving okay. Jake nodded and moved toward the nearest victim. It was Velkas, the small crystal being who had asked him about human medicine. The alien was pinned under a fallen beam, and Jake could see cracks running through its crystal skin. Dark fluid was leaking from the cracks. "Velkas, can you hear me?" Jake asked. The crystal being's eyes fluttered open. "It hurts," it whispered. "Everything hurts." Jake examined the beam. It was too heavy for him to lift alone, but he could see that Velkas was bleeding badly. The dark fluid was pooling under the alien's body. "I need to stop the bleeding," Jake said to Lisa. He pulled off his shirt and pressed it against the largest crack in Velka's skin. The alien screamed, a sound like breaking glass. "I'm sorry," Jake said, "but I have to keep pressure on this or you'll bleed to death." Around them, other alien students were trying to help, but they were in shock. Jake saw Zixara standing over another injured student, its hands glowing with healing energy, but the light was weak and flickering. "The energy core explosion," Zixara said when Jake looked at it. "It has disrupted our healing abilities. We cannot access the power we need." Jake cursed under his breath. The aliens' gentle healing methods depended on technology that had just been destroyed. They were helpless. "Lisa, we need to triage," Jake said. "Find out who's hurt worst and who we can save." Lisa nodded and began moving through the debris. Jake heard her calling out, checking for responses, just like they had been trained to do. "You," Jake said to Narek, the gas creature that was hovering nearby. "Can you move heavy objects?" I think so," Narek said, its voice shaking. "Good. I need you to help me get this beam off Velkas. But be careful, if you move it too fast, it might cause more damage." Jake positioned himself at one end of the beam while Narek wrapped its gaseous form around the other end. On three. 1, 2, 3. They lifted the beam together. Velkas screamed again as the pressure came off and more dark fluid gushed from its wounds. "I need something to bandage these cuts," Jake said. He looked around and saw a tablecloth that hadn't been too badly damaged. He grabbed it and began tearing it into strips. "What are you doing?" Zixara asked, moving closer. "Making bandages," Jake said. "I need to wrap these wounds to stop the bleeding." He began wrapping the strips of cloth around Velkas' damaged areas. The crystal being whimpered with each touch, but Jake kept working. He had learned a long time ago that sometimes you had to hurt someone to help them. "Jake," Lisa called from across the room. "I need help over here." Jake looked up and saw Lisa kneeling beside one of the furry aliens. This one was unconscious, and Jake could see it wasn't breathing. "Watch Velkas," Jake told Zixara. Keep pressure on those bandages. If the bleeding gets worse, press harder. He ran to Lisa's side. The furry alien, Morthic, was the same one who had been getting his arm healed the day before. Now he was much worse off. No pulse, no breathing, Lisa said. Jake didn't hesitate. He began chest compressions, pushing down hard on Morthic's chest. The alien students who were watching made sounds of horror, but Jake ignored them. Get me something to clear his airway, Jake said to Lisa. Lisa found a napkin and began clearing debris from Morthic's mouth. Then she tilted his head back and began rescue breathing. You're hurting him, one of the alien students cried. He's already dead, Jake said, not stopping his compressions. This is his only chance. They worked together, 30 compressions and 2 breaths, over and over. Jake could feel Morthic's ribs bending under the pressure, but he kept going. Around them, the alien students watched in terrified fascination. After what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes, Morthic suddenly coughed. Jake felt a pulse under his hands. He's back, Lisa said. Jake sat back on his heels, breathing hard. Morthic was unconscious but alive, his chest rising and falling on its own. The alien students were completely silent. They stared at Jake and Lisa with expressions of shock and something that might have been awe. How? Zixara asked quietly. Training, Jake said, and practice and refusing to give up. He looked around the destroyed cafeteria. There were more injured aliens, and the Academy's gentle healing methods weren't working. The beautiful energy fields and cellular regeneration chambers were useless without power. We need to organize, Jake said to Lisa. Find out what supplies we have, Set. Up a triage area? Get the walking wounded to help with the seriously injured? Lisa nodded. Just like back home, what can we do? Zixara asked. Our healing methods are not working. Jake looked at the crystal being, seeing the fear and confusion in its silver eyes. You can learn, he said. You can help us save lives? The human way. But we don't know how, another alien student said. Then we'll teach you, Jake said. Starting right now. He stood up and looked around the room. There were at least 15 injured aliens, and more might be trapped in other parts of the Academy. The gentle healing methods these beings had relied on for generations were gone, destroyed by the explosion, but Jake and Lisa were still here, and they knew how to heal without fancy technology. They knew how to save lives with nothing but their hands and their training. Listen up, Jake called out to the alien students. We're going to teach you emergency medicine, human style. It's going to be rough and it's going to be scary, but it's going to work. The alien students looked at each other with uncertainty. They had seen human medicine and been horrified by it, but now their own methods had failed them. We don't have a choice, Zixara said quietly. We have to try. Jake nodded. Then let's get to work. We have lives to save. The real lesson was about to begin. Jake looked around the destroyed cafeteria and made quick decisions. The alien students were standing in shocked groups, unsure what to do. Their beautiful healing methods were useless, and people were dying while they watched. We need to set up a triage area, Jake told Lisa. Somewhere we can sort the injured by how badly they're hurt. Lisa nodded and pointed to a clear area near the wall. Over there, away from the debris. Jake turned to the nearest group of alien students. You and you, he said, pointing at Zixara and 2 others. Help us move the injured to that area. Be gentle, but move fast. But we don't know how to move injured beings safely, Zixara said, its crystal skin flickering with nervous lights. I'll show you, Jake said. He knelt beside an unconscious gas creature that was barely holding its shape. For your people, we need to support the containment field. Like this, Jake carefully scooped up the gas being, using his hands to give it shape. The alien students watched as he carried it to the triage area. Your turn, he told Norek. Help me with the others. While they moved patients, Lisa was going through her medical kit. She pulled out supplies that made the alien students step back in fear. Needles, scalpels, bandages, and bottles of medicine. I need to find something to sterilize wounds, Lisa said. Their healing chambers would have done this automatically, but we have to do it the old way. She found a bottle of cleaning solution in the destroyed kitchen. It wasn't medical grade, but it would have to do. Jake had set up 3 areas. Red for critical patients who needed immediate help. Yellow for serious injuries that could wait a little. Green for minor injuries that could wait longer. Velka's goes in red, Jake said, pointing to the crystal being who was still bleeding despite the bandages. So does Morphic, that gas creature. With the containment breach, goes in yellow. How do you decide so quickly? Asked one of the alien students, a furry being with 8 legs. Practice, Jake said, and experience. You learn to see what's most dangerous first. He knelt beside Velka's and unwrapped one of the bandages. The crystal being was still bleeding, dark fluid seeping through the cracks in its skin. I need to stitch these wounds closed, Jake said. He pulled out a needle and surgical thread from Lisa's kit. The alien students made sounds of horror and several backed away. You're going to put that needle into Velka's? Zixar asked. It's... Voice high with panic. Yes, Jake said. It's the only way to close the wounds and stop the bleeding. But it will cause pain, another alien said. Velka's is already in pain, Jake said. And if I don't do this, he'll die. He looked down at Velka's, whose eyes were open but unfocused. Velka's, I'm going to sew up your wounds. It's going to hurt, but it will save your life. Do you understand? Velka's nodded weakly. Do what you must, it whispered. Jake began stitching. Each time the needle went through Velka's crystal skin, the alien made a sound like breaking glass. The watching students looked sick, but they didn't look away. Why are you watching? Jake asked as he worked. If it bothers you so much? Because we need to learn, Zixara said quietly. Our methods have failed. If we want to help, we must understand yours. Jake finished the first wound and moved to the second. His hands were steady, but he could feel sweat on his forehead. Lisa, how are you doing? Got the gas creature stabilized, Lisa called back, but I need help with this one. Jake looked over and saw Lisa working on a being that looked like it was made of living metal. Part of its body had been crushed in the explosion, and metal pieces were scattered around it. I think these pieces need to go back where they came from, Lisa said. But I don't know how their bodies work. I know, said one of the alien students, stepping forward. It was another metal being, similar to the injured one. I am Krenix. That is my study partner, Tholam. The pieces must be reattached in the correct order. Show me, Lisa said. Krenix began picking up the metal pieces, examining them carefully. This piece goes here, this one here, but they must be welded back together. We don't have welding equipment, Lisa said. I can help, Jake said. He pulled out a small device from his kit. Surgical cautery pen. It's meant for sealing blood vessels, but it might work to weld metal. He handed the device to Lisa, who looked at it doubtfully. This is way outside normal medical practice. Nothing about this is normal, Jake said. Try it. Lisa activated the cautery pen and carefully touched it to where 2 pieces of Tholam's body met. There was a small flash and a smell of hot metal. When she pulled the pen away, the pieces were fused together. It works, Krenix said, its voice filled with amazement. You can repair metal beings with your tools. While Lisa worked on welding Tholam back together, Jake finished stitching Velka's. The crystal being was still conscious, though obviously in pain. How do you feel? Jake asked. Terrible, Velka said. But alive, I can feel the bleeding has stopped, Jake smiled. That's what counts. He moved to the next patient, one of the furry aliens who had a deep gash across its side. This one was conscious and trying to crawl away when Jake approached. No, it said. I have seen what you do. I do not want your violent healing. Your name is Pixara, right? Jake said, sitting down beside the injured alien. I'm not going to hurt you. I'm going to help you. You cut and stab and cause pain? Pixara said. Yes, sometimes I do, Jake said. But look at Velka's. Look at Tholam. They're alive because Lisa and I were willing to hurt them a little to save them a lot. Pixara looked over at the other patients. Velka's was sitting up now. The bleeding stopped. Tholam was conscious and talking to Krenix. It really works? Pixara asked. It really works, Jake said. But I need you to trust me, Pixara was quiet for a moment, then nodded. Do what you must. Jake began cleaning the wound with the sterilizing solution. Pixara hissed with pain but held still. Around them, other alien students were watching and learning. Can you teach us to do what you do? Zixara asked. Some of it, Jake said as he worked. The basic stuff. Stopping bleeding, cleaning wounds, moving patients safely. We want to learn, Zixara said. All of us. Jake looked up and saw that it was true. The alien students who had been horrified by human medicine just hours ago were now eager to learn it. Fear had become respect, and respect was becoming understanding. Okay, Jake said. Lisa, we need to start teaching them while we work. For the next hour, Jake and Lisa worked on the injured while teaching the alien students basic emergency medicine. They showed them how to apply pressure to stop bleeding, how to check for broken bones, how to keep airways clear. The aliens were quick learners. Their methods were gentle, but they understood the principles. Soon, Zixara was helping Jake bandage wounds while Nurek assisted Lisa with patient movement. This is very different from our healing, Krennic said as it held pressure on a bandage. Different doesn't mean wrong, Jake said. Your methods are beautiful and effective when you have time and power. Our methods work when you don't. We never considered that healing could be urgent, Zixara said. We always assumed there would be time. On Earth, there's not always time, Lisa said. Sometimes you have minutes or seconds to save someone. How? Do you live with that pressure? Pixara asked. You get used to it, Jake said. And you remember that even if you can't save everyone, you save who you can, the work continued. More injured aliens were found in other parts of the academy, and the alien students helped bring them to the triage area. Each time, Jake and Lisa taught them something new. They learned to splint broken bones using pieces of debris. They learned to clean wounds and apply bandages. They learned that sometimes causing a little pain prevented a lot more pain later. By the time rescue ships arrived hours later, the alien students had become a functioning medical team. They worked alongside Jake and Lisa, no longer horrified by human methods but grateful for them. We have saved 17 lives today, Elder Physician Colmet said when he was brought in from another part of the academy. He was injured but conscious? How many would have died with only our methods? Jake looked around at the patients they had treated. Most were stable now, their wounds cleaned and bandaged, their pain managed with human techniques. Probably half of them, Jake said honestly. Maybe more, Colmet nodded slowly. Then we have much to learn from you. And we have much to learn from you, Jake said. When this is over, when your equipment is fixed, your methods will make these people healthier than ours ever could. But your methods saved them first, Velka said from where it sat, bandaged but alive. Without you, we would all be dead. Jake sat down heavily, suddenly feeling exhausted. Around him, alien students continued to work, using the human techniques they had learned to care for their classmates. I think, Zixara said quietly, we understand now why you heal the way you do, yeah? Jake asked. Sometimes, Zixara said. Being gentle is not enough. Sometimes you must be strong to be kind, Jake smiled. Now you're getting it. 3 weeks had passed since the explosion. Jake stood in the rebuilt medical bay, watching Zixara practice stitching wounds on a training dummy. The crystal being's hands were steady now, no longer shaking when it picked up a needle. Remember to keep even tension, Jake said. Too loose and the wound won't close. Too tight and you'll damage the tissue. Zixara nodded and continued working. Its stitches were neat and precise, almost as good as Jake's own. Around the room, other alien students practiced different human medical techniques. Narek was learning to splint broken bones while Krennic worked on cleaning and bandaging wounds. I never thought I would enjoy causing pain to heal, Zixara said as it finished the sutures. You're not causing pain, Jake said. You're preventing worse pain. There's a difference. The doors to the medical bay opened, and Elder Physician Colmet entered. The silver-skinned alien walked slowly, still recovering from his injuries in the explosion. Behind him came the Academy's new dean, Dr. Thrennick, a being that looked like it was made of flowing water. How are our students progressing? Dr. Thrennick asked. Better than I expected, Jake said. They're learning fast. Zixara here is already doing sutures that would be acceptable in any human hospital. Colmet approached the training area where Velkas was practicing CPR. The crystal being's technique was still awkward, but it was getting the compressions right. Push harder, Lisa called out from across the room. You need to compress the chest at least 2 inches. Velkas pressed down harder, and the training dummy's chest compressed properly. It still feels wrong to hurt someone to help them, Velkas said. That feeling never completely goes away, Jake said. But you learn to trust that it's the right thing to do. Dr. Thrennick moved through the room, observing the students. The Galactic Medical Council has been asking questions about what happened. Here, it said. They want to know how a group of untrained students managed to save so many lives during the emergency. They weren't untrained, Lisa said. They just learned a different way of healing. Yes, Dr. Thrennick said. And that is what the council finds interesting. We have submitted a report recommending that human emergency medicine be added to the standard galactic medical curriculum. Jake stopped what he was doing and looked at the dean. Really? The evidence is clear, Colmet said. During the explosion, 17 beings were critically injured. Using only traditional galactic healing methods, we estimate that 11 would have died before help arrived. Using human methods, all 17 survived. But our methods are not pretty, Jake said. They're rough and sometimes violent. Beauty is not always the most important thing, Dr. Thrennick said. Sometimes effectiveness matters more. Zixara looked up from its practice. We have learned that there are different kinds of healing. Gentle healing for when there is time. Strong healing for when there is not. And both are necessary, Velkas added. We cannot have one without the other. Over the following days, Jake and Lisa worked with the academy staff to design a new curriculum. It would combine traditional galactic healing with human emergency medicine. Students would learn both approaches and when to use each one. The key is teaching them that violence and healing can coexist, Jake explained to a group of faculty members. Human medicine seems violent because we had to develop it on a dangerous world, but every technique exists to save lives. How do we overcome the natural revulsion many species feel toward your methods? Asked Dr. Yelanara, a plant-like being who taught cellular regeneration. By showing them the results, Lisa said. Let them see patients who are alive because of emergency medicine. Let them understand that sometimes a little pain prevents a lot of death. The new curriculum was tested on volunteer students from different species. At first, many reacted the same way the original group had, with horror and disgust. But as they learned the principles behind human medicine, they began to understand. It is like surgery, explained Morthic, the furry alien whose life Jake had saved with CPR. You cut the body to remove disease. Human emergency medicine cuts through gentleness to remove death. The breakthrough came when Dr. Sylvan, a respected physician from the core worlds, visited the academy. He was known throughout the galaxy for his opposition to what he called primitive healing methods. Dr. Sylvan was observing a practice session when one of the students, a gaseous being named Flexara, suddenly collapsed. Its containment field was failing and it was losing cohesion rapidly. Prepare the regeneration chamber, Dr. Sylvan ordered. It will take 20 minutes to charge the chamber, Dr. Thrennick said. Then we wait, Dr. Sylvan said. Jake stepped forward. Flexara will be dead in 5 minutes. Let me help. Your barbaric methods are not needed here, Dr. Sylvan said. Jake ignored him and knelt beside the failing gas creature. Narek, I need you to stabilize Flexara's outer layer while I work on the core containment. Narek immediately surrounded Flexara with its own gaseous form, providing external structure. Jake pulled out an emergency atmospheric stabilizer from his kit, a device designed for human spacesuits. This might work, Jake said, adjusting the device's settings. If I can create a temporary containment field, He activated the device and placed it at Flexara's center. The gas creature's form immediately became more stable, no longer threatening to dissipate. Impossible, Dr. Sylvan said. That device is not designed for medical use. No, Jake said, but it works. Sometimes you have to improvise. Within minutes, Flexara was stable enough to be moved to a proper containment unit. The gas creature would make a full recovery. Dr. Sylvan stared at Jake for a long moment. You saved that being's life with equipment that was never meant for healing. That's what emergency medicine is, Jake said. Using whatever works to keep people alive until proper treatment can be given. And you learned this on your violent homeworld? We learned it because we had to, Lisa said. When people are dying, you don't have the luxury of waiting for perfect solutions. Dr. Sylvan was quiet for a long time. Then he turned to Dr. Thrennick. I withdraw my objections to including human medicine in the curriculum. These methods, while crude, are clearly effective. The validation from Dr. Sylvan opened doors throughout the galactic medical community. Soon, medical schools on dozens of worlds were requesting human instructors. Jake and Lisa found themselves training teachers who would spread human emergency medicine across the galaxy. Do you think we're changing things for the better? Lisa asked Jake one evening as they watched Zixara teach a group of new students how to perform CPR. I think we're giving them tools they didn't have before, Jake said. Whether that's better depends on how they use those tools. Zixara approached them, its crystal skin glowing with satisfaction. I have news, it said. The medical station on Kepler 7 has reported their first successful emergency surgery using human techniques. A mining accident victim who would have died was saved. That's great, Jake said. They are calling it the human protocol, Zixara continued. Emergency medicine techniques for when traditional healing is not fast enough. Jake smiled. I like that. The human protocol. We have also received requests from military medical units, Velka said, joining the conversation. They want to learn battlefield medicine. That makes sense, Lisa said. Military medics deal with the same time pressures we do. As the months passed, human emergency medicine spread throughout the galaxy. It was always taught alongside traditional healing methods, with instructors emphasizing that both approaches had their place. The Galactic Medical Academy became the center for this new hybrid approach to healing. Students came from across the galaxy to learn how to combine gentle, long-term healing with aggressive, life-saving emergency care. We have created something new, Dr. Thrennick said during a graduation ceremony. A medical philosophy that embraces both peace and urgency, gentleness and strength. Jake watched as the graduating class took their oaths. Half were traditional healers, half were emergency specialists, and all understood that healing sometimes required difficult choices. You know what I've learned? Jake said to Lisa as they prepared to return to Earth. What? We didn't just teach them our medicine? They taught us something too. What's that? That healing doesn't have to be either gentle or aggressive. It can be both depending on what the patient needs, Lisa nodded. The best medicine uses whatever works. As their transport ship prepared to leave the academy, Jake looked back at the gleaming structure. Somewhere inside, alien students were learning to save lives with techniques that had once horrified them. They were learning that sometimes you had to be rough to be kind, that sometimes violence was the most compassionate choice, but they were also teaching human students that healing could be beautiful, that medicine could be art as well as science, that taking time to heal properly was just as important as acting quickly to save lives. The galaxy was becoming a safer place, not because everyone healed the same way, but because they had learned to heal in many different ways, and that, Jake thought, was the best lesson of all.